So I must appreciate Sherifat and Kesley for the solution to the last assignment. You guys did well. We both did well. Nice answers. Well done. Well done. And I'll use this opportunity to implore others also to always tie their hands on the assignments. It's a way to build us. It makes it get better. And if there's any issue, you may reach out. So this is the assignment I gave us. Let's first on it to see where we stopped last week. Then we'll see where the assignment comes in. So presently we have Taye, Kenny, and John here. Right? So what it has us to do is that I should be able to add a new name here. Maybe this. Then when I click on this, it should display the name right on the screen. Yeah, it should be part of this name. So I should now have Taye, Kenny, John. Then in this case now, I will have Damilare at the front. So let's do the solution together. So when a user clicks on add new person, let's see. Okay, we call on this function to add a person, but it's not displaying it on the screen. So what we can do is this. This is the part that is displaying it on the screen. So we need to find a way to run this part again. That's the whole stuff. If you're able to run this part again, it will display it on the screen because it is this part that is displaying it on the screen. So when a user clicks on this button, add new person, and it push this into this array, after pushing it into the array, we can run this loop again. This loop will run based on the number of items in this array. This loop will run based on the number of items in this array. So since there are 3 items in this array at the beginning, that's why you only see 3 names. If after we pushed and we run this loop again, now there will be 4 items, and this is going to run 4 times. If there are 5 items, it's going to run 5 times. So we only need to run this part again. As long as we run this part, it's going to display it. So one solution is maybe to copy this part and paste it after we've pushed. So we're running this loop again. And now let's add a new name. Oh, another problem. The new problem is this. It's concatenating everything with what we have inside this place initially, right? Taye, Kenny, John. Now we have another Taye, Kenny, John, Damilare. Now when we add another name, let's add Sherifat. Let's say physics. When we click on it now, look at the problem. We have Taye, Kenny, John, Damilare. Now Taye, Kenny, John, Damilare, Sherifat. That's not what we want, right? Let's make it better. What we can do is this. We can say that this part is the problem. What it does is that I is 0, I less than the length of the array. Initially, the length of the array is 3. That is I less than 3. Display.inner text equals to display.inner text plus array I is 0, array I, that is index 0 dot name. That's going to be Taye, right? So when I becomes 1, when it runs this loop again, I becomes 1. Array I index 1 dot name, that is Kenny. When I becomes 2, array I index 2, which is this object dot name, that is John, is going to put the 3 there. Initially, that works very fine, no problem. Fine. Please, do we get what I'm explaining? If you are lost, can you let me know before we move on?
Let's understood.
So this is continuation of the last class. Now the problem now is this. Remember, this part has already placed Taye, Kenny, John inside this div. When the user now clicks on this button, it's going to come here along the cuts here. It will get the value of name from the first input, the primary from the second input, create an object here, push the object inside this array. Now it will run this loop again. When it gets here, display.inner text equals to initial value of display.inner text. Now remember, we already have Taye, Kenny, John. inside display dot inner text. It will now say plus array I dot name. I is 0. I will start from 0. That is array I dot name, that is Taye. So it's going to concatenate Taye again with Taye Kenny John that you already have on the screen. I come again. It's going to get the initial value of display dot inner text, which is Taye Kenny John initially, plus array I is 0, dot name, which is going to be Taye again, right? I becomes 1 now. It will run the code again. Display dot inner text plus display dot inner text, which is display dot inner text will look like this now. Taye Kenny John. Taye. So when I becomes 1, it's going to be like this, plus array I dot name, which is Kenny again. When I becomes 2, it's going to be display dot inner text plus display dot inner text. This is the initial value of display dot inner text plus array I dot name, which is John. Now we've added a new name. Let's say the new name we added is now Sherifat. I becomes 3. Display dot inner text equals to initial value of display dot inner text plus array I dot name, which is Sherifat. Do you get the problem? So because it's getting the initial value of display dot inner text, it will concatenate it with the new value. And since this I starts from 0, it will keep doing it like that. Let's solve this problem. One thing we can do is this. We can say that whenever we call on this function, add new person, right? We can say first empty this div. Make this div empty. If this div is empty, it will remove everything inside display dot inner text before it starts running this loop. So that it will first remove whatever might be there initially, then now it can now start from 0, 1, 2 and above, right? So it's going to start from scratch. Do we get the problem? Please, I want to ensure that we get the problem before most problem in programming is that people
Yes, sir.
Okay. Most problem in programming is that people don't take time to first understand where the problem is before we start providing the solution. Once you get the problem, it's easy to provide the solution. Do we get the problem before we move forward? Please, if you don't get the problem I just highlighted, if we don't understand the reason for the problem, can you signify? Ahmed. Thank you so much. Do you have a question before I go over it again? Okay, let me go over it again so that we can look at the problem together. Here is it. Let's take it step by step. When we run this code it from the top to the bottom. It's going to create this array of objects. It's going to run this part. Let I be 0. I less than the length of the array. There are 3 items here. This is 0 less than 3, right? It will say display dot inner text equals to display dot inner text plus array I dot name. I is 0. That is array 0 dot name. So this line, what it's saying is that get the initial value of display dot inner text and concatenate index 0 of this array, the name of index 0 of this array. So what it will do is that it will put Taye here because index 0 is this object dot name is Taye. So concatenate what is inside this place initially, which is an empty string with this empty space. So it's going to be like this. Concatenate what you have inside this initially, empty string plus this space like this, then plus array I index 0 Taye. So this is what it's going to do. So at the end of the day, you will see what you just see on the screen will be Taye inside this div. That's the first thing we are going to see, right? We to put Taye here. When it is done, I becomes 1. Since this is a loop we keep running again and again. I becomes 1. But before we proceed, please, do you get what I just explained? That first part.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Ahmed. We can't hear you. You can type in the comment section. Okay, let's proceed. Please type in the comment section. I'll read them up. Now I is, that's for when I is 0. Right? I becomes I plus plus I becomes 1. Is 1 less than the length of the array? The length of this array is 3. Is 1 less than 3? Yes. It enters this place again. That is, this line is going to do this for us. Display.innerText equals to initial value of display.innerText plus array I.name. What is the initial value of display.innerText? That is Taye plus array I is 1. Array index 1, which is this object, dot name, is to get the name, which is Kenny. To concatenate them together. Of course, this empty space, we ensure that there is a space between them. So now the value of display.innerText now will now be this. So at the end of the day, we're going to see something that looks like this. So display.innerText will now look like this. Let's put it inside. When it is done with that part again, I plus plus I becomes 2. Is 2 less than length of this array? Yes. This is 3. Is 2 less than 3? Yes. Display.innerText equals to initial value of display.innerText plus array I.name. That is, initial value of display.innerText is this plus array I is now 2, array index 2, which is this object dot name, which is John. Right. So that becomes the new value of display.innerText. So at the end of the day, it's going to look like this. So when it is done with these parts, it will see this function. Remember I told you that functions are ignored until you call on the function. Functions are ignored until you call on the function. So it's going to ignore everything inside this function. So that when you run the code on the browser the first time, this is what you see. Taye, Kenny, John. So when you run it now, this is what you see. Let's refresh the page. Oh, sorry. I've typed this here. I'll just do something like this. I'll copy. Remove everything here. So this is what you're going to see. Taye, Kenny, John. Now, let's now assume that we added a new name, Kingsley. The department, let's say URP. We click on this. Let's see what happens now. Let's explain. Let's go back to the codes. So we bring this back to explain what is happening. Before we click on this button, remember we have Taye, Kenny, John inside this div. Now when the user enter, let's say the user entered Kingsley here and enter department here, then you click on this button. Let's see what happens. It calls on this function and it's going to do everything inside this function. It will get username.value, which is Kingsley in this case. Department, which is medicine. It will create an object out of it. The object will look like this. Name is it has a property name and the value is my name, which is Kingsley. Then it has another property called department and the value is medicine. So it's going to create this object out of it. Right. Then it will push this object inside array. So it's going to push this object now inside this such that this array will now look like this. It's going to now look like this afterwards. So when it's done now, let's comment out this part. After pushing, if you come to this place around the codes, I is 0. Is 0 less than the length of the array? Now there are 4 items now inside this array. So is 0 less than 4? Yes, 0 is less than 4. Display.innerText equals to display.innerText plus array I. That is I is 0. That is array index 0 dot name. That is the first item in this array. Get the name attribute of it, which is Taye. What it's saying is that get what is inside this place and concatenate it with Taye. Now, what do we have inside this place? That's the next thing. What do we have here? What we have here is this Taye, Kenny, John. That is what we have here. Then plus array I index 0, which is Taye. So it's not going to be Taye, Kenny, John, Taye again, right? Such that what we're going to now have will be Taye, Kenny, John, Taye, like this. When it is done, I plus plus I becomes 1. Is 1 less than the length of the array? Yes, 1 is less than 4. Display dot inner text equals to initial value of display dot inner text plus array 1 dot name, since I is now 1. So the initial value of display dot inner text is this here. Copy. Then concatenate array index 1, which is the second object, dot name, that is Kenny. So set it back as the new value of display dot inner text, such that this now looks like this. It looks like this. When it is done again, I plus plus I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 4, which is the length of the array? Yes. Display dot inner text equals to display dot inner text plus array index 2 dot name, that is, get the initial value of display dot inner text, which is the one that has Kenny now. Then add array index 2 dot name, add John to it. Add John to it. So set it back as a new value of display dot inner text. So this is now going to contain John. Then I plus plus I becomes 3. Is 3 less than the length of the array? Yes, 3 is less than 4. I want to see if I stop any comment. Okay. Is 3 less than the length of the array? Yes, 3 is less than 4. Display dot inner text equals to initial value of display dot inner text plus array I dot name. Now this is what we have inside display dot inner text plus array I is 3, which is this one, dot name, which is Kingsley. So plus Kingsley. So set it back as a new value of display dot inner text. So this is what you now have inside display dot inner text. Now I plus plus, let's add Kingsley to the page. This is what you have there. I plus plus I becomes 4. Is 4 less than 4? No, so it's going to terminate the loop. When it's done, it will console log ARR, the whole array of objects will be sent to the console, and it will stop. So that is why we have this here. Okay. Alright, you can ask your question, sir.
Okay, sir. I noticed something here. When I did the assignment, I just used that object and imputed my details directly. So it means you can still use that.
You can use.
Can you go back to the code? Let me see.
Okay.
Can you go back to the code? Let me see. Let me say something.
Okay, sir.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that you can still use this other method. That is, if you want to keep adding more objects, you can just use that your display text.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The one you did, you uncoded the old items here. You uncoded the old items here. You uncoded it. And uncoding it means that it's not going to make these things flexible. Do you get it, sir? Hello, sir. Did you get it, sir?
No, I didn't hear you, sir.
I said the one you submitted. I said it is that you had coded the names. That is, all the names were set right from beginning, and that will not make it flexible. We want to be able to get the names from users.
Okay.
And display it.
Alright.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Okay. Okay. So this is where we start. So when we get to the browser now, we see all the names there. Let's remove this. Yeah. Let's apply this. And so close this. Refresh. Oh, I need to remove this also. So let's add a new name. Ahmed. Then let's say log, something like this. So we have this. So this is the problem we have, right? So in order to solve this, we can now say first clear everything inside the div before you start running the loop. You can say before you start running this loop, because this will always start from zero. Start from zero and then run everything again. First clear everything inside that div. So we can say what's the idea of the div display dot inner text. Display dot inner text equals to empty string. That's solve our problem. So just by adding this single line, before it starts adding new items, because it will always start from Taye again, Taye John and everything. It will always start from zero. I will start at zero. So before you start running this loop, first clear everything inside that div. So we can now add a new name. Let's say we are adding Kisley, and we are Kisley. Let's say another. Click on this. You can see it's working fine now. Let's say we have Sharifat. Let's say Sharifat is let's say electrical let's say like this. I have this. Let's say we have Ahmed. Let's say Ahmed is mechanical. Then click on this. This is what we get. Any questions so far?
No questions, sir.
So we can move to today's class. Today we are looking at local storage in JavaScript. So I'll stop the recordings, maybe so that the local storage video will be a separate video on its own.